You're in the Business Insurance Zone with me, Steve Savant, national insurance columnist and financial color commentator. This week on The Biz, our monthly update series for October 2012. And on today's show, our annuity update with special guest Eric Palmer, nationally recognized annuity expert.
When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.
Well, welcome everybody to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm your host, Steve Savant. We're broadcasting live to a nationwide audience of financial advisors right here in Fountain Hills, Arizona, home of America's largest fountain. And again, from a generation removed from myself and the baby boomer nation, Eric Palmer, not only annuity expert, but the up-and-coming next generation of people under 40 that are actually ruling the knowledge base of the next generation to come. Eric, honestly, people that were at your age and know what you know, it's an anomaly. In our day, we were as dumb as dirt, I have to say. we couldn't even read a rate card. Right. You know what I mean? Actually, think about that. If I'm talking about a rate card, how old am I?
I don't even know what that is.
He doesn't even know what that is. And I'm talking about when we used to do our illustrations, and you'd put your illustration into the computer, and the old bucks in our industry will appreciate this, and then I'd walk away for an hour because I know it's going to take that long to calculate and print.
Oh, jeez.
I remember when it was edgy just doing a fax machine.
Well, you know, I definitely have a new appreciation for the software that we use today because it's nice to have instant numbers at your fingertips.
Think about this. Yours truly, I could probably pound out, if I was left alone, 40 to 45 illustrations a day without breaking a sweat because the technology, computer speed, it's just unbelievable.
Right.
Why are we talking about all this? Because we're in the lowest interest rate environment in the world, and I don't know if there's anything to talk about because the annuity rates are so down. But we got a few things to talk about. Eric?
Well, you know what I want to spend this episode doing is identifying some of the products that have just are standing out to us, not just because of interest rate, which is obviously something we'll talk about here, but because they have a little bit of something extra to add to for the client. And when we're in a low interest rate environment, we can't just stop selling annuities because inherently they still have benefits that are necessary for retirement and for saving. We just have to look at the products that are out there that we can position with a few extra benefits than maybe we were positioning before. So kind of getting into a few things, I'll identify some of these opportunities. But first what I want to do is talk about the environment we're in. And there's been a lot of talk about whether or not low interest rates are going to hang in there. Is it going to be 2013, 2014 that we see any upswings in interest rates? And with the announcement of the QE3, it's pretty obvious that we're going to suppress those rates for a number of years. But a couple of things that stood out to me about the QE3 announcement that I think are noteworthy, especially for those of you out there that are planning your 2013 marketing and deciding whether or not you're going to invest in annuities for next year. There's no expiration date. There's no preset expiration date on the asset purchases. So where the first two rounds of easing that the U.S. government had announced, this one has no end date in sight. Wow. So that kind of tells you, okay, well, there's more than meets the eye here. Europe hasn't resolved a thing. We have a lot of current events going on in Europe that are detrimental and creating a lot of press, which is negative and driving down the efforts or the recognition of those efforts in Europe. So the markets aren't reacting. So I think by putting sort of no glass ceiling on the purchase of assets, it tells you that the U.S. government feels there might be a QE4 or QE5, and instead of going through the effort, they're just going to call it QE3 and buy up assets until they run out.
Why don't they just call it quick copy? Because they're just printing monopoly money.
They are.
That's what it is. But how is this going to affect? Because this is why there's such a flight to indexing. Right. This is exactly why this is going on.
Well, and that's the direction I want to move in. So, multi-year guarantee rates, for example, I've got a few numbers I wrote down, but I don't even want to bring the charts up. We've been seeing these rates for the last several months. They're all hovering in and anywhere, between a 2.3 and maybe a 2.9% return. There's one product out there, the Sentinel product. We talk about it a lot. It's one of those a la carte annuities. So if you're looking for just pure rate on a 5-year, you can be around 3%. So that's a 5-year rate.
Well,
not
actually,
bad,
that's pretty.
right?
I hate to say it, but that sounds pretty good.
That's phenomenal. So, but no major change. So if you've been watching these shows, you've seen our updates before. Look, these are where the rates are right now. They're probably not going to get any better. One company that I do want to make a mention of here, Athene Annuity. Athene has been a company that we've been talking a lot about. They've been a good partner here at Brokers Alliance. They're a company that plan on growing. They did announce a 20 basis point increase in their max rate product. That's their multi-year guarantee type product. So we've got a year one rate of 3.6 on the 7-year, a total effective annual rate of 2.74%. So 7 years, 2.74%. not a bad rate when you're talking about a product that has all the features, the death benefit of the account values and so on. So strong company, and nice to see an increase in rate from them, but they're standing out from the pack. Nobody else is really announcing huge rate increases. Our 10-year treasury is still at 1.6-ish, give or take the day that you're watching the show. You know, a 5-year bank CD is still sitting around 1.4 to 1.5%. So, you know, no major movement in the multi-year guarantee market. So we're looking at index products.
Well, you brought up one thing real quick. Remember, anytime you're watching our update, this is our every 30-day show, and you need to always check in with Brokers Alliance before you go forward with any of these rates, because they can change on a dime.
Right.
So always call. It's 1-800-290-7226, extension 125. Right.
Exactly.
So always check in first before you go forward. The rates today we're doing are front end of October. This could all change in the next couple of weeks.
Well, it could change halfway through the middle, the middle of the month. So definitely check with us. And we put out these rate sheets. We have a lot of great grids that we can provide you, spreadsheets, comparisons, you name it. We can put it in front of you. But the reality is, if you're going to sell the multi-year guarantee products, there isn't a whole lot of movement, and don't expect a whole lot of movement. But I'll say what I've been saying, and again, this is my opinion, but I wouldn't be looking at long-term MIGAs right now, because 5 years is probably a solid number. 7 years, okay, decent for some side money. But going past that for surrender charges, when you print this much money and you buy this many bulk volume assets, you were talking about, the government's buying mortgage-backed securities. We have to anticipate that we should probably lock up these low rates for shorter periods of time, not long periods of time, because we have to believe that there's going to be some uptick in the rates somewhere down the road.
Well, I'm thinking, if you're sitting there at 3% lock with a company like Sentinel, and you're sitting look at the caps, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the caps on indexing, because if I can't get more than 3% on an index on a par rate, well, maybe I shouldn't be playing at all. Maybe I should just lock in with Sentinel. But I want to look at all these things, because really, everybody's saying, why is the flight to index? He just told you why. When we come back from the break, we're going to address the current index annuity caps, spreads, income riders, and don't forget to enroll in IULUniversity.com for the best training, education, sales support when it comes to life insurance for retirement income.
You're listening to the insurance industry's #1 resource for products, planning ideas, carrier information, and interviews you can use. When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.
Welcome to the Brokers Alliance Workshop. I'm Jessica Lopez, and that's Steve Savant. What are you doing?
I'm sandbagging standard and substandard cases for my producers for the impaired risk season.
Steve means he's holding back hard-to-place cases for submission until November.
But if your client needs coverage now, we'll have it underwritten, have the policy owner pay the quarterly premium, and then we'll resubmit it in November.
If you have cases that have been declined, postponed, or heavily rated, we'll package your case with the right company for the best offer.
So let the sandbagging begin. Well, welcome back to the Business Insurance Zone. I'm Steve Savant with Eric Palmer. And remember, you can order today's giveaways, our spreadsheets, at thebiz@brokersalliance.com. And just a heads up, before moving forward with any of the ideas you hear on our show, always consult your tax advisor and your broker-dealer compliance officer. Hey, we're talking about current interest rate annuities, but actually, I need to shift gears and head into indexing, because I wrote an article about a month ago that got a lot of read only because I said indexing could be the only game in town right now.
Right.
And I mean, honestly, if your caps, anybody that has a high cap in the annuity right now in October for our update, anybody playing upstairs?
Well, there are some companies that have some high caps, and some companies that have some new interesting crediting methods. So I'm going to go down, I'm going to name a few companies that I like right now, and there's a couple of different reasons why, but these are products that you need to put on your radar. Some fit better for others. It's one of those things when we're talking about annuities, you got to analyze all the products. One product does not fit all. I see it all the time where somebody gets used to selling something, and then that's what they sell every single time. So I really want to emphasize, I'm going to mention a few companies. I want you to put all these companies in your pocket and make some decisions based on the client. But North American, they have a new product out called Retire Choice. Now, North American on the cap side of the business, it's not necessarily anything to brag about. They're sitting in and around the 3% cap range. It's kind of the average in the industry right now. It's just north of 3% in terms of the total cap on an annual point-to-point chassis. But they do have an uncapped strategy, and so there's a couple of different products out in the market today that are using these uncapped strategies. They use participation rates, but they also have some blended indexes. They have some foreign indexes in addition to the S&P.
So what's the equation if I have a no cap annuity, but my par rate then is what?
let's say your participation's 40%. Okay, so if you have an upswing in the market at 10%, you're participating, with 40% of the return, you're going to get a 4% credit to your product. Whereas a lot of the companies out there have about, say, a 2.5–3% annual point-to-point cap. That same 10% would have resulted in a lower return. So don't be turned off by low participation rates, because at the end of the day, if you're managing these things closely, there could be some significant upswings in the S&P. This year alone was significant. If you bought at the beginning of the year, you might be happy with a participation type product. So just keep your eye on them, know about them. North Americans has a great one. They also have a index that includes gold price. And so, taking a few different angles, you got a commodity-based index, not just to S&P or some of the standards that are out there today. So North American's offering a lot more choice in the indexing. For those of you out there that like to manage the indexing a little bit closer on a regular basis for your clients, it's a good product to take a look at. Someone else that I like to kind of bring to the forefront is Genworth. Genworth has a really good 7-year index annuity, and I think that's important to note. Again, it's a shorter duration. We're not locking our clients' money up for a long period of time. A lot of our FINRA registered advisors really like this product because the surrenders are low. It's a 7-year. It's not outlandish. And they have some interesting things. They have a performance trigger index. And for those of you that have watched some of our earlier shows, performance triggers are interesting because if there's little or just a slight positive performance in the index, you'll get the full cap. So if my cap is 2.5 or 3% and my S&P value is equal to or even a penny greater than where I started a year prior, I get the full cap credited to my account. So that can really be really beneficial. If we're talking about a suppressed interest rate environment, maybe that S&P is going to level off in 2013. There might be very little performance. This would be an index strategy that would give you some opportunity if there's very little change in the market. So I love the Genworth 7-year product, some interesting crediting and an interesting
I just want to give a little heads up on what Garrick said, which I think is outstanding. If you have registered reps and registered investment advisors and planners out there looking at this 7-year, if you're just an insurance producer, say, but I'm not a registered rep, I don't have access to securities, variable contracts. When I see those guys going to a 7-year index like this, that should be a heads up to the rest of the insurance producers. Man, this is something to look at.
Well, yeah, index annuities are actually, in the overall annuity space, index annuities are still growing. Most annuity production for the year 2012 has been relatively down because of the interest rate environment, but we're still seeing a positive movement and positive growth in indexing on the life insurance side of the coin as well. And I think that's because indexing gives a little bit more opportunity for growth. It does provide the downside risk and security. Don't forget, there are moving parts in these contracts like income riders that could actually create a charge on the account when a zero interest is credited. But these products are still beneficial. I'm opening up a whole new can of worms.
So sorry, I cannot let that go. Let's just talk about that just for a quick second. I know you got a couple of things to talk about, but real quick, I bet money, real money, better than the Packer game the other night. Okay. I bet real money that most of our producers do not know what you just said on income rider charges.
Right.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, and it's a perfect segue into my last product, by the way. So it's good timing to talk about this. But we always stand behind the power of zero, and we sell indexing based on the power of zero, which we should be. That's a great feature in these products is we don't take the negative returns directly, having our money directly in the market. But we do add charges when we're adding income riders. And right now, today, the average income rider charge is about 95 basis points. Right. Okay, so if we take into consideration somebody putting a nice chunk of change in for retirement, there could be several $1,000s a year of charges that they're having every single year, even after they trigger the income rider. So if you add it all up in the long term and you look at some of the alternatives out there, you might be adding a lot more cost to the contract than you think. So even though you have a 0% floor, you might have a negative 95 basis point return in that given year because you had the rider on there. So I bring that up because there's a couple of companies that we like to work with, and in some situations, they're actually the most competitive in terms of payout. 4 thoughts, Income 125, it's a free lifetime income rider. So when you're looking at lifetime income, don't always pick the highest payout, analyze all the products. Sometimes the cost aspect could be far greater than the actual income return.
Unbelievable. And remember, I'm still betting money that you didn't know that. Remember, you can watch this show and all our shows by clicking on the red on-demand video button right on our homepage at brokersalliance.com. Well, that's the Buzz on the Biz for today. Get in the zone, the business insurance zone.
The Biz is brought to you by Brokers Alliance, a national leader in insurance products, support services, and educational workshops. When it comes to life insurance, annuities, long-term care, disability, or group pension plans, we're the news you can use.